This is Cletus. Full name, Cletus Delroy Montfort Bigglesworth Spuckler. He is a slack-jawed yokel. He is married to Brandine, who may be his sister, cousin, or mother. They're all kinds of things. Cletus and Brandine have many children together, all raised on their dirt farm on the Springfield outskirts. You'll often find Cletus making moonshine or picking up roadkill, but he has also had stints selling balloons, singing folk music, and mooching off of his kids. Most folks'll never lose a toe, but then again some folk'll. This is the history of Cletus the slack-jawed yokel. Wow, so 2023 is the year of confusing and uncomfortable family situations on this channel, huh? I guess Cletus was due for his own Simpsons histories. He is another entry in the Simpsons' long proud tradition of one-note stereotype characters. In his case, the yokel, redneck, hillbilly, hayseed, however you want to describe it. We're going to be drinking a lot of moonshine in this episode. With these kinds of characters, the questions are always about their overall range. Has Cletus always been portrayed as a simple stereotype, or have they played around with the formula? Let's discover his hidden depths. What is it about Cletus that allowed him to endure for 30 seasons now? As always, we'll go back to the beginning to figure it out. And this time, the beginning is in Season 5. Cletus's first appearance was in Bart the Elephant, showing up to gawk at that pointy-headed little girl. Also, I presume he saw the elephant. If anything, gawking was his primary role for this nameless slack-jawed yokel at first. He shows up again the following year in Itchy and Scratchy Land, taking a picture of that crazy critter. His ma would be proud that in just his second appearance, he has already upgraded to plot foreshadowing. However, Season 7 was where Cletus became a star. If there are any Cletus haters watching and need someone to blame, first of all, you've got some nerve, mister. But secondly, blame Oakley and Weinstein. They thrust him into the spotlight. First, we have Home Sweet Home Diddly Dum Doodly, in which he is part of the parental re-education class, where he receives both a strangling and a heartfelt embrace. Although brief, this scene does establish a few core character facets. First, that his name is Cletus. Second, we see Brandine for the first time in the background. And third, that he's a parent. Oh boy, is Cletus a parent. We also see him on the Stereotypes bowling team, at the DMV getting his driver's license, and again at the Ogdenville Outlet Mall. This is Brandine's first speaking role, establishing their marital banter over her job at the Dairy Queen. They revisit this dynamic in 22 short films about Springfield, which is the second best segment in the episode. You all know it's true, don't at me. Seriously, this thing is perfect Cletus. It's got a catchy song, a backwards yet relatable premise, funny wordplay, and a corny end joke. Perfect segment, no notes. Cletus only shows up twice in Season 8, but made the most out of his opportunities. In Brother from Another Series, Cletus raises the alarm, and we find out about poor cousin Merle and his smellhound Geach. Seriously, I could watch a whole show about Sideshow Bob and Cletus. They are such a funny duo. Where was that spin-off, Troy? In The Twisted World of Marge Simpson, Cletus ruins Marge's business by redeeming 300 free pretzels. We also meet his kids for the very first time. Tiffany, Heather, Cody, Dylan, Dermot, Jordan, Taylor, Brittany, Wesley, Rumor, Scout, Cassidy, Zoe, Chloe, Max, Hunter, Kendall, Caitlin, Noah, Sasha, Morgan, Kira, Ian, Lauren, Cubert, and Phil. Anyway, it was business as usual for Cletus during the Mike Scully years, seasons 9 through 12. Sure, he was a bit player, with only 3 to 5 appearances per year, but it was clear that he was going to be in it for the long haul. Many of these obviously played into his cartoony hillbilly shtick, like when he busted up his stink bone, bathed his kid in the car wash, attempted to smash a turtle with a book, and went dumpster diving for indoor plumbing tubes. The Scully era is where they really latched on to the more bizarre Spuckler family dynamics. In Lost Star Lisa, Brandine literally births a child while Cletus is scooping up roadkill and beating his gums with Lisa. In Alone Again Naturadiddly, they're making out and mention that they have the same parents. Incest. They also started playing around with our expectations, having Cletus call Homer a moron at the NRA meeting and showing him off as an outsider artist. It took him 10 years to figure out how to get over that junkyard fence. But most importantly, Cletus started playing roles in the actual stories. In The Joy of Sect, he walks away with all the money after the leader crashes into their property. So either Cletus is secretly wealthy, or he squandered it, or a possum stole it or something. I'm guessing the possum. In Trilogy of Error, Cletus essentially serves as the driver for the second half of the story, taking Homer to Dr. Nick's clinic and having his truck stolen by Marge and Lisa, who are hiding among his chickens. The Scully years really established Cletus's iconic truck, which came in handy for their upcoming video games. Also, before we leave the Scully era, we gotta mention one more new role for Cletus, as member of the jury, a job we have seen him perform in countless episodes. You might say that Cletus is a rural juror. Now, would you believe that when Al Jean returned as showrunner in season 13, that Cletus became even more prominent in the series? Because there is no stopping this train. Al Jean loves this guy. Cletus is in like half of the season 14 episodes. He is that ubiquitous. Maybe that's why season 14 is so good and so weird. Many of these appearances fall in his typical joke categories, and don't worry, we will cover them. But first, let's hit up his major roles in chronological order. For such a bit player in the classic era, Cletus did end up getting a surprising number of spotlights, with his own backward sense of continuity. Now, Cletus and Brandine did pop up to play a key role in season 16, even closing out the episode with Brandine running off with James Caan and Cletus engineering a hit. However, his first major spotlight was 2 seasons later, in season 18's Yokel Chords. Or rather, it's a Spuckler family spotlight. This episode is really more about the kids. We find out that the Spuckler kids are being homeschooled, Lisa agrees to teach them, and Krusty discovers they are talented singers. This episode portrays Cletus as being totally out of touch with his kids' best interest, signing the contract without reading it, dressing up like a pimp, and squandering their earnings on monster trucks. Also, we have another dog-related mishap. In the end, Brandine returns from her military deployment to give Cletus a piece of her mind. Here's where we learn Cletus's middle name Delroy, and the bit of trivia that Cletus is the father of only 2 of these kids. They make up and walk away with their net profit of negative $12,000. The following season, we get Apocalypse Cow and the introduction of Mary Spuckler. When trying to save his cow from the slaughter, Bart offers it to Mary. Cletus is overjoyed because in his culture, this is a formal proposition of marriage. He says they named her Mary because he thought she'd marry, similar to why they named their son Stabbed in Jail. We learn that Cletus is a stickler to these rules of engagement, and that he married Brandine when she was 13 and she had already been divorced 4 times. 2 years later, Cletus gets his own dedicated B-plot in Rednecks and Broomsticks. This is the birth of the Cletus-Homer bromance, as the 2 of them bond over their love of alcohol. Geez, between Cletus-Homer and Chalmers-Homer, I kinda wanna just watch Homer get drunk with every secondary character. This subplot is actually pretty cute, doing this charming sideways parody as the 2 go on a moonshine drinking tour. Also, nice editing, I approve. This boozy friendship does draw the ire of Moe, who threatens them all with a gun. It does not go well for him. The hillbillies even refuse to have their way with Moe, much to his chagrin. I love Cletus's response, his annoyed reaction that just because someone did that in a movie, now it's a stereotype. It's a funny little speech by Cletus, especially since he's Mr. Stereotype on The Simpsons. But I love the character detail that Deliverance really gets on Cletus's nerves. Anyway, now we go to season 24, for the continuation of the Mary Spuckler saga. See, I told y'all this guy suddenly had continuity in these middle years. Actually, this is a pretty notable experiment on The Simpsons' part, the first time they wrote a serialized story into a season. In the premiere, he tells Bart that Mary ran off, and then follows them to New York to get them back. He's kind of the villain of the story, telling Mary that he's 1/3 her father and demanding to take her back to Springfield. He does share one nice moment with Bart in the end, feeling bad for him and giving him a picture to remember her by. She's somewhere in there. Mary returns to Springfield in Love is a Many Splintered Thing, a terrible episode that Cletus is barely in. We do get to hear some of their folk singing in person, as well as their documentary crew chronicling it. In season 27's Puffless, Cletus gets another B-plot, once again playing the role of the villain. Maggie bonds with some animals, Cletus captures her new possum friend, and the gang has to rescue it. All the Spuckler kids are drunk, but thank God for designated Dorothy to give him a ride home. He has his dog Beauregard guarding the possum, and naturally he is shocked when they jailbreak it. Personally, I don't see why Cletus is the villain here. He had the perfect moonshine to pair with that possum, and now they're stuck eating their fingernails instead. There seems to be a pattern that Cletus gets a spotlight or B-plot every 3 seasons or so. We went from season 19 to 21 to 24 to 27, and now we're jumping to season 31. But interestingly, now we got Cletus spotlights 3 years in a row. It's like every time there's a new showrunner rising to power, they immediately fall in love with Cletus. First up, we have season 31's The Incredible Lightness of Being a Baby. This features the grand return of the Cletus-Homer bromance, after Homer stumbles upon his balloon selling operation. When Burns learns of their helium deposits, he sends Homer to buddy up to Cletus to fool him into signing a shady contract. This episode is pretty charming in how it portrays their relationship, how Cletus teaches Homer how to catch catfish, and then they have dinner together. While Homer is deceiving Cletus into a bad deal, he does come clean, and Cletus instantly forgives him. Cletus is a yokel, but he is a yokel with a heart of gold. Also, the whole family pulls shotguns on Mr. Burns until they get a fair deal. He's a yokel with a heart of gold and a shotgun. In season 32's Yokel Hero, we run it back to the music industry. Interestingly, there has been a constant theme with the Spuckler family, that they are all secretly talented musicians. This time, it's Cletus himself demonstrating his singing talents. This one had a nice bit of continuity, where Cletus still calls Homer his best friend, and then Homer becomes his manager. They even name-dropped the last time Homer was a country music manager. Also, Cletus kisses Homer just like Lurleen. Love triangle? His star does shine so bright that he eventually dumps Homer for this guy. He totally sells out, doing commercials for moonshine, and abandons his family. Similar to Yokel Chords, in the end, Brandine confronts Cletus, and he finally snaps back to his senses and returns to them. This is a very formulaic story, but I do enjoy the surprising amount of character continuity they snuck in here. They even bring back movie reference Cletus, as he argues against Homer, saying his career is like A Star is Born. Honestly, if they just started writing a little bit of Abed into Cletus, I would be all for it. Anyway, they followed this up with Pretty Little Liar in season 33. This one is more of a Brandine episode, as we discover she is secretly smart. But this creates a significant rift with Cletus, who doesn't even know who she is anymore. To be fair, this is a common accusation for these two. This time, we get to see how these kissing cousins met at a shotgun wedding, and how Cletus took her on a romantic tractor ride. This episode kinda gets on my nerves, because I've always viewed Cletus as being aggressively laid back, where he and Brandine will bicker and immediately make up. In the end, Cletus does prove he can change and accept her by getting a library card. But I don't know. I don't like marriage crisis episodes with these two. If Cletus and Brandine can't make it, what hope does any couple have? Speaking of Cletus and Brandine, now let's look at some of their one-off jokes about them as a couple over these later years. The Scully years took a more cartoony and exaggerated spin on them, and these later seasons followed suit. There seems to be a love triangle with them and the pigs. In season 14, Brandine gets on his case about finding lipstick on his collar. In season 18, she's shooting at him because he gave the pig a day of beauty and she got nothing. She might have a point, as Cletus has always spoiled the pigs. Unfortunately, Cletus has admitted to sleeping with animals in another episode. We also hear that Cletus joined the Strip for Your Wife class because she's been making eyes at their documentary cameraman. So Cletus and Brandine definitely fight, especially during Spotlight episodes, but generally their dynamic is more about being that backwards but loving couple. Cletus abdicated his Mardi Gras crown to marry a commoner. He tells a romantic fib about a sky message that it says, "I love you, Brandine," instead. When the family is upset that the meth lab has already been raided, Cletus reassures her that he likes her home cooking better. When he gets a new playhouse, she declares him the most wonderful husband and son she has ever had. Cletus and Brandine's blood relationship is a mini mystery on its own, as they've done so many varying incestuous jokes over the years about them. In addition to being mother and son, they have referred to them as siblings, cousins, second cousins, sometimes multiple things at once. Basically, that season 16 quote sums up them best. Of course, the other primary Cletus joke is about his kids. These tend to fall into two categories: jokes about his numerous kids with increasingly ridiculous names, and jokes about pregnancy and/or body humor. The exact number of his kids is another mini mystery and varies wildly from episode to episode. Both Simpsons wikis believe that number to be 44, but I would guess that number is much higher. After that season 8 joke, they eventually settled on these kids from Yokel Chords being the main Spuckler clan. These are the kids we see most frequently in one-off jokes and cutaways. But we've also seen kids like Gummy Sue get a tooth, their new daughter Rubella scabies. Cletus accidentally gave away a baby when he mistook rabies for babies. He accidentally swapped their daughter Condoleezza Marie with a bag of sugar. They put 3 more unnamed babies in a stroller for a walk. In season 17, Brandine births yet another baby in their car. They supposedly had a son named Kevin with a human face and fish body. Then we have Normal Head Joe, this kid attached by an umbilical cord, his daughter Peaches who has lice, his son Tripod and his twins Wheel and Barrow, his son Straight Edge, and his son Gitmo, who hates Cletus for being over-supportive and praising him too much. Also, in that season 32 episode, he has kids named Be Kind, Rewind, Uber Black, Disney Plus, HBO Max, and CBS All Access. He will probably have to rename those last 2 kids. Like I said, the kid's situation is obviously very fluid. Sometimes it's just the Yokel Chords kids, sometimes he'll show up to an audition with a stage full of them. Cletus himself said that he had 17 kids already when refusing to be a potential legal guardian. Legal guardianship? No. But he will become Bart and Lisa's foster parents for that sweet $5 a day. You hush up, dingus. When it comes to Cletus's wife and kids, it's pretty clear that The Simpsons is mostly sticking to a formula, taking stereotypes in a cartoony direction. But to their credit, they do occasionally do screw the audience jokes and subvert our expectations with Cletus. In town hall meetings, they'll have Cletus and Brandine dressed suspiciously fancy after a wave of looting. He'll make fun of Lisa's intelligence because she's a blonde. During a hunting trip, he'll agree with everything the leader says, and when called out, confesses that he just wanted to belong. In the future, Cletus becomes vice president and hollers at Brandine about going to Brunei. He goes to see Cosmic Wars because he wants to see if the aliens match with the one that they had captured. Actually, it sounds like delivering packages to the Spucklers is fraught with danger. No wonder Cletus started thinking they were haunted by ghosts. My favorite Cletus subversion joke is probably this one from season 31, when he's in their book club and learned Swedish to read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in its original language. He sternly demands a thoughtful analysis, and Lenny stammers his way through the themes. Now who wants cake? Otherwise, modern Simpsons just tends to bring out the Spuckler family whenever they need something rural, a gross out joke, or simply another family to compare to the Simpsons. Oh, is Bart lost in the woods? Here comes Cletus's bloodhound. Let's hope Bart smells like a fox. Are bedbugs going around Springfield? Let's blame the Spucklers. Did the Simpsons just open a sub shop? Let's have the Spucklers undercut them with their child labor. They definitely occupy a niche that other families like the Van Houtens or Hibberts can't fill. Their closest comparison is probably the Munces, with the Spucklers being a different spin on a low-income family. Like many Simpsons stereotype characters, he gets kind of forced into a box, where they're hesitant to do anything else with him. Let's bring on some more wacky kid names. That's my struggle with Cletus, because when rewatching his appearances, I came to realize that I actually do really like Cletus as a character. He's so ridiculously laid back and unpretentious. I totally get why he and Homer would become friends, because all Homer typically does is loaf about, drink alcohol, and banter with the wife. Cletus does have a lot of inherent charm where we want to see him around. He's a fun character. However, I don't think The Simpsons has used Cletus that well. There are just too many jokes that feel like they were copy and pasted from previous episodes, often leaning on the grosser aspects of his stereotype. I don't know. The Simpsons has poked fun at every group and every stereotype. There's just so much LOL incest with these two, and it gets kinda old after a while. Fundamentally, Cletus's jokes are too repetitive. Maybe the biggest problem was that they already did the perfect Cletus scene in 22 short films about Springfield, and they've been chasing that feeling ever since. I like the underlying premise that Cletus and Brandine are just like Homer and Marge, in the sense that they have these relatable domestic squabbles. It's just the details of those squabbles are set in a different world, and they bring a different brand of humor. Only Cletus could deliver a joke like, "Hey, you know what? I could call my ma while I'm up here." There's this season 31 joke about his roadside corn stand losing value, where Cletus laments, "Can't eat no cryptocurrency when the grid goes down. That's why I started my hedge fund." This is literally and figuratively a corny joke. It's so silly and obvious, it circles back around to being hilarious. I like the sort of vaudeville shtick that Cletus brings. They should keep blending in cartoony and gross out stuff. He needs that as part of his arsenal. It just can't be the only thing he's about. Cletus is a wild card. I hope we get a Cletus in the future that is still full of surprises. Let me know in the comments what you think of Cletus and your favorite moments of his. Do you like the more absurd and cartoony direction they took him? Or do you prefer a more salt-of-the-earth approach? Also, which is the best of the Spuckler kids? I pick W because he has a cool eye patch. As always, let me know who you'd like to see for the next Simpsons Histories. You all really wanted Cletus last time, so he had to be the pick. But Blue-Haired Lawyer, Luigi, and Lindsay Nagel were popular picks too. I've done a bunch of Simpsons Histories in 2023. I wonder if we can fit in one more. Let your voice be heard. As always, thanks for watching.